Welcome to Chatting with Chuck. I'm your host, Chuck. Today I'm talking with Gary Frederick, who's our Advantech Semicon expert out west, and he's going to talk a little bit about Semicon. So I'm going to kind of jump right into it, or semiconductors, as I guess you could call it. Hey, Gary, what do you think is the current state of the semiconductor market?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Chuck. I'd say the past few years we've seen real consistent, strong growth in semiconductor capital equipment spending. And the good news is that trend looks like it'll continue for at least the next few years. And if you contrast that with what would occur in the late 90s through, let's say 2012 timeframe, we would see these wild swings in year over year semiconductor capex spending, capital equipment spending. And really, those swings have smoothed out since probably 2012. In the last 3 years, we've just had this consistent record-breaking revenue for capital equipment expenditure.
So, Gary, so what do you think the reason for that is?
Yeah, many people think the reason is that in years past, the semicon capital equipment market was really driven by the personal PC market, which tended to change every 18 to 20 months. And this drove semicon fabrication plants to do equipment updates. So you just had a really cyclical market with a huge ramp up and then a huge drop off in business. But now what we've seen is capital semiconductor capital equipment is being sold for many new markets in wafer fabrication. I mean, markets that require things like data centric applications for artificial intelligence, big data, the Internet of Things and edge computing, and even the automotive IC market with their MEMS and smaller memory devices. This has really added to the diversity of the type of semiconductor equipment that's needed out there.
Well, Gary, that's it's good. That's today, let's say. But what about in the future? What do you foresee in the future?
There's talk of EUV equipment, lithography equipment that'll continue to decrease the size of transistors and the wafer footprint, and that's something that looks like it'll hit in the future. Something we're seeing though that's going to hit very quickly is really China's rapid and big investment in domestic semiconductor fabrication plants and design centers. And someone told me that China has about 200 billion annually on imported chips, and that really when they spend on imported crude oil. And the Chinese government is looking to reduce that reliance on foreign chip manufacturing. So they've got probably 46 big budgeted semiconductor projects that are fabrication plants and design centers that are being built or will be built in the next couple of years. And in the past, most of your semiconductor fabrication plants were not in China. So they were in Asia Pacific and North America and Europe. And the fact that in the future we're seeing these plants opening up in China, this is kind of changed the way logistics and support is handled in the semiconductor market. So yeah, definitely China's big investment in domestic foundries and their buying equipment is going to be a change for the market here that's going to happen fairly quickly.
Well, speaking of the future, what are some of the big challenges you kind of see happening?
Yeah, the semiconductor industry has long been known as a boom or bust industry with those wild swings. So no one expects a bust coming up soon just because the way the market has changed. But if one does happen unexpectedly, that would be quite disruptive and quite a challenge for the market. So, but let's assume that's not going to happen. The other one that is interesting is a trade war with China, right? So,
Right.
as we just talked about, I mean, China is going to be probably the biggest investor in semiconductor equipment, new semiconductor equipment purchases over the next few years. And obviously, a lot of the North American semiconductor OEM manufacturers are looking to participate in that market. So, a trade war with China would be a challenge, and let's hope it doesn't come to that. Another thing that we see that's a challenge for the industry is the industry is still buying and building 200 millimeter tools, and this is to make smaller 8-inch wafers. And really, the thought was 5, 6, 7 years ago they wouldn't be continuing to build these tools, but because the way the market has changed, it's still a popular tool. And many of those tools were designed back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And of course, copy exact is something that these manufacturers try to employ. So for us or other suppliers to semiconductor equipment makers, trying to continue to provide the same product that you provided 10, 12, 15 plus years ago is a challenge. So I think the tool makers need to look at kind of updating some of their subcomponents in their tools if they're going to continue to make equipment for this 200 market.
Well, Gary, no secret that you work out for Advantech, and I know they provide some products for this market. Why don't you just touch a little bit on what these products are and what they offer?
Sure. Yeah. Advantech we are the leading manufacturer of industrial and embedded computing platforms. So our industrial and server PCs are a big part of our offerings in the semicon market. Obviously, they're designed to be rugged industrial platforms. But more importantly for this market, we offer long life review for those platforms and systems, and this is really critical to support copy exact requirements, Intel's copy exact requirements. In addition, what a lot of people don't realize about Advantech, if they know Advantech, they probably don't realize this, is that we really started 30 plus years ago with an I/O product, a plug-in I/O card. And so we've got a very strong offering for all kinds of plug-in I/O cards, from analog input to analog output, discrete in, discrete out, remote I/O modules, and programmable automation controllers that are PC based. We also have industrial displays and HMIs and managed and unmanaged switches, and all these products, in addition to our industrial PCs and server PCs, find their use in the semicon market, whether it's in the fab plant itself or with the tool makers who are making the equipment that go into those fab plants. And as I mentioned, I did mention copy exact, and copy exact is more of something we do as managing a project. So we do that for all of our products and all of our systems, as a solution for our semicon OEM. So, what that involves is really managing the life cycle of our own products, plus the third-party peripheral products that we install in those systems that require copy exact. So, definitely copy exact management is one of our many solutions that we provide to the semicon OEM industry.
That's great. I heard that, and I've seen that there's a trade show called Semicon West in San Francisco, and I believe it's July 10th this year, if I remember right. I understand it's a pretty big show for the semiconductor market. Can you tell me a little bit about the show? And I know that Advantech has a booth there, 5680, from what I hear. Tell us a little bit about the show and a little insight of what happens.
Yeah. This the Semicon West show is in San Francisco's Moscone Center, right in pretty much the heart of the business district of San Francisco. It's the week of July 10th. The show originally started in 1971 in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's where everyone went to really get the latest information on semicon processes and the semicon industry. There's lots of other shows now all over the regions in other regions, but Semicon West is still it's the granddaddy semicon show of them all. And what you get there is probably the big semicon equipment makers sponsor the show. You've got about 700 exhibitors at the show. There's tens of thousands of semicon industrial professionals from really all over the world, walking the show and attending the exhibits and attending the seminars. And Advantech has participated in this show for about 20 years. We've had a booth there. As you mentioned, our booth this year is 5680, and we're going to show a lot of our products and solutions used by the semicon industry. We'll also have our semicon specific team there that specializes in semicon applications like copy exact project management that I talked about. And really one of the interesting things about the show this year, and they started this last year, is the addition of the IoT pavilion. And they talk about things like smart manufacturing in this pavilion and other IoT, Internet of Things topics. But I think this really acknowledges the contributions the IoT market to the recent, sustained growth in the semicon industry. The show is definitely doing things to kind of expand beyond just talking about semicon. They also have partnered with the Intersolar show for about 7 years now. So in addition to the Semicon show, there's the Intersolar show, which more talks about the solar industry and that market. But that's a co-show along with the Semicon show.
Well, Gary, I know you're going to be there. So if anybody is listening and want to meet Gary or find out more about Advantech's products or just semiconductor in general, look up Gary at booth 5680 and tell him hi. He's the tall guy standing in the booth.
Thanks, Jack.
That's right, Gary. You know that.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll have our team there, and stop on by the booth. Look forward to seeing you there.
I thank you, Gary, for taking the time to do this, and I hope you have a great time at the show, and you have some interesting discussion. This has been Chatting with Chuck. I'm your host, Chuck. Stay tuned for further episodes in the near future. Take care.